And I thought the last video was going to be it for the year, and then we get more mayhem, more changes and more questions. So here it is, perhaps our very last video for the year, covering whether you can travel after submitting an RV21, changes to the border, testing requirements for travellers, and the mayhem that is MIQ. It is 12:30 p.m. here on Wednesday, 22nd December 2021. My name is still Aaron Hunt, partner here at Stace Hammond. As always, this is not legal advice, this is just our commentary on immigration here in New Zealand. Looking for legal advice, please get in contact with us. We will be open during the break, well at least I'll be here working during the upcoming breaks. If you have anything that's urgent or anything you need help with, please get in contact with us. And if you find this video useful, please like, share, subscribe, and consider leaving us a review on Google. The link is in the description down below. Okay, we're going to start with MIQ. Now, on 24 November, the Honourable Chris Hipkins announced this plan to reconnect New Zealand to the world. It was not about visas, but it was about loosening the MIQ requirements, looking at the use of home isolation for those entering New Zealand to sort of start moving to opening the borders to some degree and then getting towards the sort of the visa allowances. Now, there was three stages here. First, it was that fully vaccinated Kiwis and other people who are eligible can come from Australia on 17 January onwards. Then you had stage 2 being fully vaccinated Kiwis and other people who are eligible from 14 February from anywhere else. And then you had sort of 30 April 2022, everybody else being allowed to enter but staggered over time, visas, that sort of thing. However, Omicron has changed that, and yesterday the government has made it, the changes have definitely are now official. The home isolation for those from Australia has been delayed until at least the end of February, so that first stage has been pushed back by 6 weeks. This is due to states like New South Wales looking at having their Omicron peaks in late January, so trying to making that home isolation a bit too dangerous to be opening up before then. Now, we've also seen, of course, changes to MIQ as a result of this. So originally there were 14 days requirement for MIQ. That moved to 7 days, followed by 3 days home isolation and 10 days for those possibly exposed to Omicron. Now it's being moved to 10 days for everyone entering New Zealand with no home isolation required. Now, anybody who's on a flight with somebody who has Omicron is considered to be a close contact, so there could be extended stays in MIQ if that was the case. This, of course, has made a mess of the whole MIQ booking system, because the system was done to allow people to actually get into the queue and actually get a spot. The days of applying and being 30,000 in queue were sort of gone, to the point where the last few draws people have actually been able to get a spot and know where they are in the queue. But now that we're sort of moving across to needing 10 days rather than 7, that sort of makes a mess of these 7-day bookings they had in place. There was a draw to take place yesterday that even then I think was delayed by a day. That's now been cancelled, with the next draw to take place on the 6th of January 2022. So the rooms that were to be released yesterday will, we assume, be used for those to allow the extra 3 days stay required, or those who are on a flight with Omicron on it and perhaps a longer stay. Now, the government also made some other announcements. The first one here is about travel requirements. So they've made some changes around travel to New Zealand. Now, all countries have now been removed from that very high-risk category, and we assume that approach was taken as the Cabinet didn't want to have sort of dozens of countries on that list, with Omicron now firmly entrenched in almost half of the world's countries. It would have had to have a long list filled with a lot of countries. Pre-departure tests now need to take place within 48 hours of flying rather than 72 hours. They have to be closer to the flying time. So make sure you've got a tester who can get that turnaround quickly and back to you in an official form, so you can fly. Otherwise, you'll not be allowed on the plane. I think there is an expectation that Omicron will appear in New Zealand at some point, but the government is trying to delay that and prevent the need to put further restrictions into place. For those on shore, boosters will be available within 4 months rather than 6. So 82% of those on shore will be eligible for the booster by the end of February 2022, and they'll actually be required for border and health workers. Vaccines are also being rolled out now to children to protect them as well. But I'm sure that this change to MIQ is going to impact a number of you who will have your travel delayed, and there has been a number of flight cancellations, at least from Australia so far, due to the MIQ changes. Now, we're going to look now at the 21 RV. And this is something that we sort of heard about yesterday. We wanted to just confirm it with immigration. They told us yesterday, one of the contacts there did, and we're just sort of trying to get something back from them just to make sure that we had heard it right. Now, the early advice from INZ was that people shouldn't travel after making their application because they wouldn't be processed. And we've said this in a previous video, and this was said to us by immigration. It was mentioned in webinars, and that's how the rules were set, at least until recently. That has now changed. Now, 2 days ago, a new knowledge base article. Now, the knowledge base is basically a set of tens of thousands of sort of answers that the immigration staff have access to, and it answers a lot of the questions. If you answer a question to the call centre, they'll often look at the knowledge base for the answer. Unfortunately, it's not all available to the public, and this one here is actually listed as being private. But a knowledge base article was released to the INZ staff that states that people who have applied for a 21 RV are allowed to leave New Zealand. After leaving New Zealand, their application will continue to be processed, and if the visa is granted, they'll be able to enter New Zealand on that visa as a resident. Of course, with NSC checks taking months and NZPCs possibly taking months, people should be careful about leaving the country anyway and shouldn't look at the 21 RV as being their way back into New Zealand. So don't go on holiday and think, yeah, I'll get this granted, I'll be back into the country within a month, because your visa could be delayed. But at least it gives you that knowledge now that if you are offshore, you can go and do this. And one of those courses for those of you who are away from your partners and you're applying for this means that you can leave New Zealand, go to your partner, perhaps build up some living together criteria while your residence visa is being processed. Now, we've confirmed this with Immigration New Zealand. That is definitely there. They won't provide us with a copy of the knowledge base itself because it is marked private, but we have heard there will be an official announcement on this today, which will be out in the forums when it is, and I'll try and get a link to it in the description of this video if I can when it comes out. Now, how they're processing 21 RV and actually processing other residence visas, I want to quickly mention on that as well, especially after the Afghan nationals case we mentioned in the previous video. We have heard that the priority is going to be given in the order of application, so when you apply is when they're going to be processing it through. There was talks about perhaps looking at some sort of prioritised system, and there was an encouragement from immigration not to sort of rush in there and apply on 1st of December or as soon as you can. But the reality is that the earlier you apply, the higher you are going to be in that queue. Now, there is some priorities that will take place in regards to residents in general, and that's ones for ministerial direction, which are rare, IPT referrals and IPT saying that the residents should be granted, which is also rare. But generally it's going to be done on the order of application. Now, for visa types that allow priority based on occupation or high salary, that priority will still exist for that visa type. But remember that the number of officers processing those applications has dropped considerably. So if you have a priority under SMC or resident from work, it may still be some time before the application is processed. Remember that those applications are paper-based, and for the last few months there's been no processing done on those applications because the offices have been closed. So we've seen 0 allocations under those for some time. If you don't have priority and you are an SMC or resident from work, then you're probably sitting behind most of the 1,489 offshore applications that weren't being processed but now need to be after the Afghan nationals case. And that is going to be one very, very long wait with only about, I think, 10 officers actually working on those visas from what we've heard, down from 70 plus. So if you do have an option for 21 RV, it's going to be the best option for most people. Not all people, but most people will see 21 RV as being the fastest option. If you are going for residence from work and you have that permanent residence option, then that could be a factor. Is waiting perhaps longer for permanent residence straight away, is it worth the extra wait for your visa to be processed, or 21 RV and getting residence earlier, is that an option? Something that you have to weigh up and talk to your lawyer or advisor about the best approach for that. But yeah, for most people, 21 RV is going to be the fastest application to make. And that is it for today. Maybe the year, who knows, we could be back at some point in the next few days, we may not be. I'm just taking it by air now. Until then, have if I don't speak to you again, have a fantastic break or a holiday or wherever you are. have a good time in the next few weeks. And until next time, kia kaha and stay safe.